Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bugatti. When people think about the fastest cars in the world, those are usually the first names that come to mind. But here's something most people never realize. Some of the craziest speed machines ever built didn't come from Europe. They came from America. And one of them became so unbelievably fast. People thought the speed record had to be fake. Today we're counting down the 5 fastest American production cars ever built. But this isn't just about horsepower. It's about ambition, rivalries, tiny companies challenging giants, billion-dollar engineering, and one obsession: going faster than anyone thought possible. Let's start with a car that revived an American legend. Before the Ford GT became one of America's greatest supercars, Ford had something to prove. Back in the 1960s, Ferrari dominated endurance racing. Ford wanted to buy Ferrari. The deal collapsed. And instead of walking away, Ford declared war. The result was the legendary GT40, a car that beat Ferrari at Le Mans 4 years in a row. 50 years later, Ford decided that story deserved a modern sequel. That's where the Ford GT came from. Every line on the body has a purpose. Those massive flying buttresses, they're not there to look cool. They channel air through the car to reduce drag while increasing downforce. Even the shape of the cabin was designed around airflow. Under the rear glass sits a twin-turbocharged EcoBoost V6 producing over 650 horsepower. It doesn't scream like an Italian V12. It punches hard, flat out. The Ford GT reaches 216 miles per hour, around 348 kilometers per hour. But speed was never the most impressive thing about this car. Balance was. It wasn't built to dominate drag strips. It was built to attack racetracks. To this day, many people consider it one of the most beautiful American cars ever designed. But if the Ford GT represents precision, the next car represents something completely different. Raw American muscle that refused to disappear. If the Ford GT was born from revenge, the Corvette was born from survival. For over 70 years, the Corvette has been America's sports car. While other performance cars disappeared, changed names, or simply faded away, the Corvette kept evolving. Every generation became faster, sharper, more capable, until Chevrolet created something that surprised the entire automotive world: the ZR1. This wasn't just another Corvette. It was the version engineers built after asking themselves one dangerous question: what if we stopped caring about limits? Under the hood sits a supercharged V8 producing well over 750 horsepower. That's enough to embarrass cars costing 2 or even 3 times as much. But raw power isn't what makes the ZR1 special. Plenty of cars have horsepower. Very few know how to use it. Massive carbon fiber wings, advanced aerodynamics, magnetic suspension. Every piece exists for one reason: keeping the car glued to the road when common sense says it shouldn't be. Flat out. The Corvette ZR1 reaches around 212 miles per hour, roughly 341 kilometers per hour. That's faster than many European exotics. Yet it still carries a name that's been around since the 1950s. And maybe that's what makes the Corvette so fascinating. It never tried to become a Ferrari. It became the fastest version of itself. But while Chevrolet had decades of history, the next company had almost none. And somehow, they shocked the entire world. Imagine trying to beat Bugatti without the billions, without a global dealership network, without a century of engineering history. Sounds impossible. Unless you're Shelby Supercars, better known as SSC. In the early 2000s, most people had never even heard of them. They weren't an automotive giant. They weren't backed by a massive corporation. They were simply obsessed with one goal: building the fastest production car on Earth. Most people laughed. Then they built the Ultimate Aero TT. Instead of chasing luxury, they chased numbers. Less weight, more boost, more power, less compromise. Powered by a twin-turbocharged V8 producing over 1,100 horsepower, the Aero TT didn't just compete. It made history. In 2007, it officially recorded a top speed of 255 miles per hour. about 411 kilometers per hour. For a moment, Bugatti was no longer the king. A tiny American company had taken the crown. Think about that. One small workshop, beating one of the most prestigious names in automotive history. That's exactly why enthusiasts still talk about the Ultimate Aero today. Not because it was perfect, but because it proved that impossible doesn't stay impossible forever. Of course, once you break one speed record, someone else immediately wants to break yours. And nobody embraced that challenge quite like Hennessey. Some companies spend decades building a reputation. Hennessey built theirs by asking one simple question: how much faster can we make it? For years, Hennessey was famous for taking already fast cars and turning them into monsters. But eventually, modifying other people's cars wasn't enough. They wanted to build something the world had never seen before. That's when the Venom GT was born. At first glance, it almost looked familiar, because underneath, it shared parts of its DNA with the Lotus Exige. But don't let that fool you. Almost everything else was completely transformed. A massive twin turbocharged V8, over 1,200 horsepower. A body built with one obsession: weight. Every unnecessary kilogram was removed. The result? A car that had a better power-to-weight ratio than almost anything on the road. And when you combine insane power with almost no weight, physics starts to feel optional. The Venom GT launched from 0 to 200 miles per hour faster than many supercars reach 100. Read that again. 200 miles per hour. Before most performance cars even find their rhythm. Then came the headline. 270 miles per hour. Around 435 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, Hennessey wasn't just building fast cars. They were challenging Bugatti, Koenigsegg, everyone. But there was one problem. Official world records have rules. And although the Venom GT achieved astonishing speeds, it didn't complete every requirement needed for Guinness certification. That created years of debate. Was it the fastest? Or almost the fastest? Car enthusiasts still argue about it today. But whether the record counted or not, one thing was undeniable. America had entered the hypercar war. And then, someone decided 270 miles per hour wasn't enough. They wanted almost 300. This is where the story becomes unbelievable. Because building a 250 mile per hour car is already difficult. Building one capable of nearly 300 miles per hour? That borders on insanity. SSC returned with a completely new mission. Forget beating Bugatti. Forget beating Hennessey. Build the fastest production car on Earth. Everything about the Tuatara was designed around one single objective: cutting through the air with as little resistance as possible. Every curve, every vent, every angle exists because of aerodynamics. Even its name comes from a rare reptile native to New Zealand, an animal famous for evolving differently from everything around it. Fitting. Because the Tuatara didn't follow trends, it ignored them. Behind the driver sits a twin turbocharged V8 producing over 1,700 horsepower on high-octane fuel. Numbers like that barely make sense on a road car. Then came the run that shocked the automotive world. SSC announced a top speed that seemed almost impossible: 316 miles per hour. The internet exploded. Within hours, engineers, journalists, professional drivers, everyone started analyzing the footage. Something didn't look right. The speed record quickly became one of the biggest controversies in automotive history. Months later, SSC returned. More cameras, more data, more transparency. A new verified run reached 295 miles per hour, roughly 475 kilometers per hour. Even without the original claim, it remained one of the fastest production cars ever built. Think about that. A small American manufacturer, competing with companies backed by billions of dollars, and still ending up near the very top of the speed charts. That's more than engineering. That's obsession. So, which American speed machine deserves the crown? The racing heritage of the Ford GT? The unstoppable legacy of the Corvette ZR1? The underdog story of the SSC Ultimate Aero? The brutal insanity of the Hennessey Venom GT, or the controversial legend, the SSC Tuatara? One thing is certain. The world's fastest cars aren't built in just one country anymore, and America has earned its place in that conversation. If you enjoyed this countdown, let me know which country we should cover next. Germany? Italy? Japan? Or maybe the fastest cars ever built, regardless of where they came from. Subscribe, because the next list might completely change everything you thought you knew about speed.